Before we get started, did anybody read through chapters 8 through 15 last week and anything in there that you thought was particularly interesting? All right.
That would be enough. I didn't know I was supposed to be.
It's all right.
I didn't get all the way to 15. So.
Okay. Did you see anything before that? That's fine. All right. Okay. So last week what we talked about was how God's people weren't obeying His commands, and that God's kind of addressing that in chapters 6 through 7. And we kind of talked a little bit about the courtroom environment that was being placed, and we said that God was acting as judge, that God was bringing the nations as witness to what He was about to do, and that He was putting Israel and Judah on trial for their crimes against Him, their rebellion against Him. And we said that obedience is what matters to God, because were the people still offering their sacrifices?
Yes.
Yeah. The people were still offering sacrifices, but it didn't mean anything because they'd go right outside the city gates, or they'd go right on top of the rooftops or throughout the city and just commit these horrible acts that were just completely rebellious. And so we said that being God's people means more than going through the motions. It's going to church, or going through the motions of going to church and baptism and service, and all that's important, but you can't just sit there and say, well, I've gone to church, I was baptized, I've gone on the mission trip. You've got to give your heart to God and change your heart from a worldly nature to God's. Okay? So we're going to kind of sum up chapter 8 here real quick before we get into our text for the morning. So when you look at chapter 8, what you notice is that it's this dialogue that's going to occur between God and Jeremiah. Okay? And so when you know that, it kind of helps make the whole chapter make a little bit more sense, because otherwise it just looks like it's just this bouncing back and forth. And so God accuses Jerusalem of being fine with her sin. And we've already kind of seen this in Jeremiah, where God is telling Israel, look, you're trying to act like you're without sin, but I know what's going on. You're trying to act like everything's perfectly fine, but I see what you're doing. You know, it's just like, if you believe that I am all-powerful and all-present, you know, you can't just sit there and think I'm stuck in the temple and not seeing what you're doing outside the city gates, right? Or up on the rooftops. I see what's happening. And so he announces that the Jews claim that they're okay because they have the law, but the priests and prophets have distorted what's going on. Okay? So the priests and prophets are basically telling the people everything's fine. We did that example the other last week or 2 weeks ago or something, where we set up David as the doctor, and David, we were saying that I was like ridiculously sick, that all this terrible stuff was happening to me, and a good doctor would sit there and tell you exactly what's happening and say, no, you need to come see me. This is bad. And instead, Israel's doctors, the priests and the prophets, were all sitting there going, nothing wrong here. Everything's fine. All right? And God's like, no, that's not true. All right? Some other ways that they were distorting the law, and it continues to happen throughout Israel's history, is just the way that they allowed themselves to get away with certain actions so that they didn't have to deal with other stuff. Jesus confronts the Pharisees on this in one of the Gospels, where he sits there and says, all right, you all sit there and tell people that if they don't give to their parents, but they give that money instead to the temple, to take care of the temple, that's perfectly fine. And what did Jesus have to say about that? Yeah, no. What's that NBA guy say? Yeah. Huh?
Right?
No.
Yeah, many boys do that.
It's he, and he might have too. That's not what he's talking
I remember.
It's like Bismack, but in there or something.
He's getting bold. Yeah, but he'd sit there and just go, or whatever it was. I don't remember. Yeah, I remember the commercial that would come on.
Yeah. She was sure.
And so, yeah, Jesus was like, no, that's not right. Why? Why would Jesus sit there and say, that it was wrong to take the money that you would have given to take care of your parents and give it to the temple instead?
Because your parents are still sick. Like, the temple, if you give it to the temple, they can use it to, clean stuff and everything, like, to use it for that, but if you give it to your parents, you're actually obeying one of the commands of Moses, which is obey your parents, but also respect your parents too.
Yeah.
That means taking care of them.
So, I mean, obviously, this isn't, taking care of your parents for most of you guys, that's not really something you all have to worry about. I mean, for I think everybody here, your parents are able to take care of you and provide for your basic needs and so forth, and so it might not necessarily be something that you can connect with right now, but as you get older, your parents might need your support. Okay, and so it comes down to this decision of it may get to a point, let's say, where you have to make the decision of, okay, I've got my bills I need to take care of. I need to take care of mom and dad. Do I have enough to give to the church? What do you do?
Take care of your parents first.
You take care of your parents. I mean, if you're in a point where your money needs to be, taking care of yourself and taking care of your parents. I mean, as long as you're not talking about like, well, I can't take care of my parents and take care of my Bentley or whatever. I can't take. I gotta keep the Lamborghini, spot plot polished and all this. No, that's obviously not what we're talking about. We're talking about like you're just barely keeping things going yourself. Your parents need to be taken care of. That's what we're referring to. Okay. Does God need money to advance His kingdom? No. Why do we give? Why do we tithe?
Help others.
Yeah. It's part of a lot of it is that we need to help others. But why does God command that we give? In the Old Testament, it was specifically 10%. In the New Testament, it's not really defined. It's basically just as you're able, you should give. And in the New Testament church, basically, if they had the ability to give over 10%, they were frequently giving over 10%. In the Old Testament, when they got stuck on the law, they would only give 10%, even when they could give more, because that's all it was required of them. Okay. And so, what's another reason that we would tithe?
Well, keep the church building nice.
Okay. Why did God command tithing in the first place?
Like, show that like you trust them against the good.
Yeah. That is the biggest reason for God to command tithing, to command giving, because it's this issue. I mean, it's why He specifically said, "Give me your first fruits." Okay. Let's go back to our example of the field. Okay. So here's your field. Okay. So we've already said that the outer edges, right, are supposed to be what?
Left alone so people can silence.
Yeah. Don't touch. All right. And then if they have little bits left over when they get done harvesting, what are they supposed to do? Don't touch. Why? Yeah.
God will provide.
Exactly. Part of it's a trust thing of God's going to take care of my needs, and the other part is similar to the edges of the field, because God wants to make sure that if somebody's poor, they can go through and grab it. Okay? This is specifically why when Ruth and the other women are going through the field, you know, they're what they're collecting is what's left behind. Okay? And that's why Boaz specifically says, pull some out and drop it on the ground, because he wants to make sure that she's abundantly taken care of, and she doesn't need to worry about trying to, you know, only get enough from the field here that's left over. So Boaz is going above and beyond the command. And then God says, give me the first fruit. All right? So if you're going with that example, just for visual effect here, if this is the first part that they grab right here in the center. So God is saying, give me the first 10. Don't get the edges. Don't get what's left over. Starting to limit what they have, isn't it? And so that kind of goes back to the whole idea of trust. Is I want you to trust me. I'm asking you to do all this, but I'm still going to provide. If you trust in me, if you obey me, I'm going to provide you so much in this section right here, you're not going to have to worry about it. Okay? And so that was God's whole idea is we need to take care of each other. We need to take care of others. And we don't need to sit here and worry about this kind of stuff. And the prophets and the priests just kept lying to the people all the way through. All right? So Jeremiah mourns for his people here in chapter 8. You know, he consistently laments during this chapter, but at the same time he recognizes that they're terrible people. Okay? Throughout the text, at least in the beginning of Jeremiah's ministry, Jeremiah actually tries to believe that there's actually good in Jerusalem. And God keeps telling him, don't pray for this people. Don't come to me requesting their salvation. Don't come to me requesting anything. I've written them off. And Jeremiah's like, no. Initially he says, no. It can't be that bad. You know? And so he might sit here and go, Jabin's just a poor, lowly, you know, guy. He's uneducated. He doesn't know any better. So, you know, he doesn't know any better. Okay, Jabin, he might not be doing. He's doing all this because he just doesn't know any better. He's just common, you know, whatever. Okay, so no, Jabin. Well, we're just gonna write that off. But Hayden. Why do I always get you two confused? Hayden is a good guy. He's nobility. He knows better. Surely Hayden is doing the right thing. Hayden is this great guy. Okay? But what he comes to find out is that what Jabin is doing is nothing, because what Hayden is doing over here is making him blush, makes Jeremiah blush, because Hayden is just being a horrible, awful, terrible person. Okay, and this is what he's coming across: is that the simple folk, okay, are doing things that are wrong, but the nobility, the people that should know better, are just as bad, if not worse. And it completely just blows his mind when Jeremiah finds out just how bad things really are. And so he sits there and just kind of laments. He sits there and goes, I feel terrible because my people are going to be destroyed. Because I'm sitting here watching as they're doing all these terrible things, and I know that this judgment is coming. I know that Babylon is coming soon. But I can't really say anything in their defense. You know, I mean, when Abraham is told about Sodom and Gomorrah that they're going to be destroyed, what does Abraham do?
He talks back.
Yeah. He prays, right? He talks to God. And he sits there and says, no. Surely it can't be this bad. Let's go to 10 people and such. And God says, yes, for 10 people, I won't destroy the city. And Jeremiah's just like, I don't know what to say. They're terrible. They're horrible people. And so he doesn't want this disaster to come, but he can't help but sit there and think of it, see any other solution to the problem, because he's trying to consistently give this message of destruction that's coming to them, and they just don't seem to listen. Okay, so for this morning, let's read through chapter 9. Jeremiah 9. I forgot to grab my Bible. Thankfully, I have my phone. All right. Anybody else need a Bible? All right.
Verse 1.
Starting in verse 1, yeah. So we're gonna start over here with Kobe since we were over here last week. So,
8.
9.
Oh, 9.
Yep.
It says 8. Jeremiah 9. Right there. Read together. Jeremiah 9. Big words.
All right. 2 verses each. Starting with Kobe. Work our way around. All right.
Oh, that my head were waters, and my eyes were fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of my daughter and my people. For that I had in the desert and traveled lodging place, that I might leave my people, and go away from them, for they are all adulterers, a company of treasures made.
Within your tongue like a bow, but falsehood and not truth has grown strong. In the land, for they proceed from evil to evil, and they do not know me, declares the Lord. Let everyone beware of his neighbor, and put no trust in any brother, for every brother is a deceiver, and every neighbor goes about it as a savage.
For deceit spread, and no one speaks the truth. They have taught their tongues to lie. They weary themselves with sin. You live in the midst of deception, and their deceit they refuse to acknowledge and declare.
Therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty says. See, I will refine and test them, for what else can I do because of the sin of my people? Their tongue is a deadly arrow, it speaks deceitfully. With their mouth they all speak forwardly to their neighbors, but in their hearts they set traps for them.
Should I not punish them for this, declares the Lord? Should I not avenge myself on such a nation as this? I will weep and wail for the mountains, and take up a lament concerning the desert pastures. They are desolate and untraveled, and the lowing of cattle is not heard. The birds of the air have fled, and the animals are gone.
I will make Jerusalem a heap of ruins, a lair of jackals, and I will make the cities of Judah a desolation without inhabitant. Who is the man so wise that he can understand this? To whom has the mouth of the Lord spoken that he might declare it? Why is the land ruined and laid waste like wilderness, so that no one passes through?
The Lord said, "It is because they have forsaken the law, which I set before them. They have not obeyed me or followed my laws. Instead, they have followed the stubbornness of their hearts. They have followed the
Bits.
Pharaohs as their fathers taught them." Therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says: "See, I will make this people eat bitter food and drink poison water. I will scatter them among the nations that knew their fathers and men, and I will pursue them with the sword until I have destroyed them." This is what the Lord Almighty says: "Consider the call for the women to pray, sing for the most skillful worker. Let them come quickly and well, till our eyes overflow with tears and the waters stream from our eyes." The sound of wailing is heard from Zion. How ruined we are! How great is our shame! We must leave our land because of our houses are in ruins. Now, you women Hear the word of the Lord. Open your ears to the words of his mouth. Teach your daughters how to walk. Teach another a
Lament.
lament.
Death is kind to your windows and clean sharp purchases. It is remove the children from the streets and the young men from the village squares. Say, this is what the Lord declares. Dead bodies will lie like dung on the open field, like kept grain behind the reaper, with no one to gather.
This is what the Lord says. This is what the Lord says. Smile at the wise boast of their wisdom, or the strong boast of their strength, or the rich boast of their riches. But let the one who boast about this, that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth.
Behold,
Those are delightful.
Behold, the days coming, declares the Lord, when I will punish all those who are circumcised merely in the flesh. Egypt, Judah, and Edom, the sons of Ammon, Moab, and all who dwell the desert, who cut the corners of the earth, for all the nations are uncircumcised, and all the houses of Israel uncircumcised in heart.
Alright. Is there anything in there that you guys, noticed?
we can obviously tell in the beginning of the chapter how upset Jeremiah is.
Yeah.
So he said in verse 1, "Oh, that my head were waters and my eyes were a fountain of tears."
Right.
Obviously, he's very upset here. Like, not just a little upset, like a lot upset.
He's pretty sad.
Because to think that you would want your head to be water so that you could just lament day and night is a sad thought. And Israel is a very close people. I mean, even today they stick together as one people, even though there are many divisions. They are considered one people. And back, back in the Old Testament, when one tribe was in trouble, the rest would go to the aid. Or if the one tribe did something wrong, then the rest of the tribes would say, "Okay, this is what you did wrong. You can either repent of it, or we can destroy you."
I liked in verse 3, I don't know if that's quite memorable, where it says, their tongues are like a bow that shoot lies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like verse 8. It says, their tongue is a deadly arrow. It speaks deceitfully. With their mouths, they all speak accordingly to their neighbors, but in their hearts they set traps for them.
Yeah. I mean, are we talking about people that are like murdering each other in this stuff right here? No,
They're very human words.
pretty much. I mean, what does that sound like to you guys? We've got a modern word for that.
Bullying.
Okay, bullying. Okay.
There you go.
Bullying, lying,
Gossip.
gossip. Okay. So they're probably, talking bad about each other behind their backs. Sitting there, going up to Javen and saying, "Javen, you're so awesome. You're a great guy." And then going over here to Kobe, "He's an idiot." Did you know that? Okay. Lying about each other, gossiping about each other. So, it's just all this terrible stuff. And they're just so deeply entrenched in it. They don't even think twice. Anybody else? Alright, a couple things that I noticed. Verse 7, God specifically says, how he's going to bring the punishment on the people. And he actually says, It says, see, I will refine and test them. For what else can I do? You know, how many times has God tried to reach out to people to correct them? A lot. Have they listened? No. And so he's obviously left with no other choice but to bring on this punishment, this judgment that's going to come. Also in verse 9, he actually says, should I not punish them for this? All right? If Hudson goes off and decks a kid in school, what's your dad going to do to him? Nothing.
Probably depends on what that kid did.
Okay, let's say this kid did nothing. This kid has been nothing but kind to Hudson all year long. You know, best of buds. And then all of a sudden, Hudson just like walks up to him in the hallway and just goes, boom, clocks him right in the face.
I don't know. I hope you got it.
Okay, so you expect your dad to punish him, right? Okay. Huh? A pacifist. All right. So God is specifically saying here, you know, this people of mine, they accepted this covenant, they took on this agreement with me, and they're completely going against it. This is wrong. I have to punish them. I've tried talking to them, they're not listening. I have to punish. All right. In verse 25, he talks about circumcised only in the flesh. Okay. So they've gone through the act, but they're not actually taking on the obedience that God is asking for. Verse 24 is where I want us to focus in on for this morning. God says, but let the one who boasts boast about this, that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord. Okay, so that's in verse 24. And then if you go back 2 verses into 22 here, this is what the Lord declares: the dead bodies of men will lie like refuse on the open field. I like David's translation where it says they'll lie like dung on the open field. Okay? I mean, that gives you a bit better picture, I think, than refuse. Okay? That's just going to be, you're just going to see dead bodies, rotting, getting nasty, just out in the open. Okay? Does that sound like kindness? No. All right? And this, it's passages like that fill most of the prophetic literature and make people sit there and go, man, he's an angry God. Have you guys ever seen Elf?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Where Buddy is sitting there talking to the author, and he's like, he's an angry elf. Okay. I mean, I kind of get that image in my mind sometimes when I see people that read through the books of the prophets and such, or read through Joshua, and sit there and go, he's an angry God, you know? But the thing of it is that you've got to remember that God does exercise kindness. Okay? And I think the reason that God puts these kind of phrases throughout the text is specifically to remind us that God is kind. That God genuinely does love. Okay? God's justice is different from our own. He was extremely patient with Judah and Israel, and he was extremely patient with the nations. And he wants us to be restored to him. And so, like he said, what else can I do? All right? God punishes in love with the hope of correction. Okay? This is the thing that we have to remember, is that God doesn't just sit there and go, Javen, I don't like you anymore. I'm going to smite you. Okay? He sits there and says, Javen's not doing what's right. I need Javen to get back on the right track. So I'm going to punish him with the hope that he's going to get going back to where I need him to be. It's the same reason that when Hannah sits there and tries to reach for the oven, I have to swat her hand. You know, I have to do something to get her attention and say, no, do not go there. That is hot. That will burn you.
I'm just saying that my child touch it once.
That's what they used to do with the tornadoes.
Right.
They would take a popcorn.
Okay. But love with the hope. Disciplining with love in the hope of correction. That's what I really want you guys to take away from this morning is that God does punish, but He will do so with the hope and with love. Okay, tonight, the elders are going to make their decision about tonight. If we do anything that's going to be here at the building, we may not have evening worship tonight because of the water issue. If we do, it'll be here at 5 o'clock. Next week, because of Labor Day, we're going to just go ahead and say there'll be evening worship and there'll be the singing. Probably what we'll do is we'll have singing out at the nursing home. And if you guys want to come over here and hang out, I'll be over here with you guys and we can kind of go from there. But aside from that, love you guys. You're awesome. Good luck on your tournaments this week. No, that's next week. Nursing home is next week. So.
Yes.